Hey guys, it's Subject Dan 1 again here, back with another new video for you guys. And today I'm back with another Dan Chat episode. And on today's episode, we're covering the very odd but very interesting Conception 2 Children of 7 Stars for the PS Vita and 3DS on today's episode. Now, Conception 2 Children of 7 Stars is an interesting game to say the least, and it's a very odd one too. I honestly never thought this game would get a release stateside, but it did, thanks to the good folks at Atlas Games, of course. It's developed by Spike Chunsoft, and Spike Chunsoft, I've mentioned before, they're notably known for their visual novel games, particularly most recently Danganronpa, Trigger Happy Havoc, and 999, so they're developers for that. So they actually made an RPG here. The story of Conception 2 takes place in this world called Atera, and Atera is known for its monsters that have been constantly wreaking havoc for years and years. And it's up to you, as the god's gift, as they call you, to produce some really strong star children to be able to go into what they call dust circles, which are these kind of dust spawners, and they're the kind of origins for all these monsters. And you kind of go into these labyrinths to kind of kill the main monsters and destroy the dust circles to prevent more monsters from being born. So, as I mentioned before, they call you the god's gift in the game, and that's one thing to note about this game right away, is that it's actually really heavily religious, and it's kind of undertone and it's overtone overall throughout the game. There's a whole lot of religious motifs. I mean, it's kind of based around the church is kind of executing these orders to kind of summon these squads and put together these squads to investigate these dust circles and these dust spawners. The gameplay of Conception 2 is almost like a hybrid mix. It's a mix between half social sim / dating game and half dungeon crawler RPG. Now, the social sim aspect to it is that you are considered God's gift, and as God's gift, you have like a 100% conception rate with what they call S-rank disciples. So it's up to you to kind of get familiar and comfy with some of these S-rank disciple girls, and there's 7 of them, and you kind of talk to them in this academy setting, this kind of high school style setting, and there's different years, different classes, but all the girls are super interesting. Like, they're all varied in their kind of personalities. I mean, some of them are more outgoing, some of them are more shy. You kind of learn their turn-ons and turn-offs and how to respond to some of their questions and what they like, what they don't like. And it is kind of like a dating game, because almost similar to Danganronpa, when you're talking to these girls, you can give them gifts, as they call it. You can buy gifts for the girls later on, and you can buy gifts to just kind of give them, or kind of accessories to kind of decorate them with later on. But the interesting thing about this is, like, it actually has a benefactor to the actual core gameplay. So the reason you're building stronger bonds with these girls is because you want to be able to produce stronger star children. And star children is this really important mechanic to the overall arching game. The star children are essentially what happens when you classmate, as they call it. And again, kind of going back to religious motifs, it's a little bit odd, but this classmating, or where you can see these children, actually takes place in the church, which is really odd. But you classmate, you produce star children, and the better your bonds with these girls, the more stronger these star children are going to be. Each girl kind of correlates to a certain element too, so they all have different elements like fire, wind, water. So you kind of take that into account when dungeon crawling. The star children will essentially come with you in these kind of dungeon crawling aspect of the game. And like I mentioned before, the other half is that it's like a dungeon crawler RPG where you go through these various labyrinths. And the interesting thing about the labyrinths is that all the labyrinths actually correlate to the 7 deadly sins. Through the dungeon crawling process, it's pretty standard. You're going through different floors and progressing kind of downwards until you reach what they call the labyrinth boss. And once you kill the labyrinth boss, you move on to the kind of next labyrinth, etc. But the dungeons are quite a labyrinth. They're always randomly kind of generated, and just massive mazes pretty much. You know, come across like items, and to gather item chests, there's like special item chests where it's kind of a gamble where you either get an item or it could be a trap, so you kind of have to take that into account. There's certain elements that'll kind of affect the kind of playing status of the of the game for like a certain floor or something. So there's interesting elements like that. But the star children come with you, and you can have 3 groups of star children. So essentially how it works is you kind of have like 4 party slots, and one of your party slots is you with one of the partners, so one of the girls, and you can take one girl with you each time, and like I mentioned before, they have various elements, so you take that into account. The other 3 slots of your party are going to be occupied by 3 star children, so you have up to 9 star children kind of with you on the field. And they also kind of are based on like classes, so like it's kind of a class-based system where once you conceive a star child, you can kind of pick their class, but not all the classes are available, so it kind of depends on which girl you classmated with, because certain girls can produce certain like classes, like, you know, a ranger class or a merchant class, like they're kind of correlated to specific girls. So it's all about kind of building these parties and grinding them. And once these star children actually reach like a max level, there's this other concept called independence, and in the game you can give these star children independence, and the benefactor to that is that you release them to be independent into the world, and they'll benefit the city and kind of upgrade facilities or unlock new facilities, etc. And that's the kind of other aspect is there's tons of stuff to do. You can take like side quests, there's other like fetch quests, item quests. You can send kind of your star children later on to like gather items from the labyrinth. There's a lot to do, so overall, so it's a really busy game, but it's so simple. So the dungeon crawler RPG aspect is that it's a turn-based RPG, so it's a really traditional turn-based style RPG. The interesting mechanic to it is that it has this kind of directional system where you'll have a monster and you can like choose which direction you want to attack from, so either like behind, side, or in front of them. And each monster is kind of weak to a certain side, so you just kind of take that into account to do more damage. So that's pretty much the premise of the gameplay. There's a lot more I can talk about, but that's kind of the overall core of that. As for the overall presentation and art style to kind of Conception 2, you'll notice that it's an extremely colorful game. It is super saturated, very vibrant colors, and there's just a lot of colors everywhere, which I really like. And the music to Conception 2 is one of my favorite parts. I really love the music in Conception 2. Like during the kind of day and like when you're talking with these girls and just the kind of social sim part of it, there's some wonderfully like super catchy upbeat music. It's so cheery. The girls each have like their own unique kind of musical themes which correlate to them, and they're like all so wonderful and so upbeat and cheery, and I love it. And that's contrasted with the kind of music you'll hear when you're dungeon crawling, which is this kind of like dark and catchy, jazzy kind of tunes and all that. So it contrasts really well, and overall I think it's a game that has a really good soundtrack to it. So that's the kind of overall scheme of what's going on in Conception 2, Children of the 7 Stars. As for me personally, I actually really enjoy Conception 2, Children of the 7 Stars. I think Spike Chunsoft is quickly becoming one of my favorite developers. I mean, Danganronpa is probably one of my breakout hits for this year. They made 999. I mean, I just think they're on a roll lately of the games that they're producing. It's a really quality RPG, although be it kind of really straightforward and simplistic, it's not going to give you too much of a challenge. I've been kind of breezing throughout the game, and it's fairly easy, I think, when it comes to the battle system and the battles that happen there. Even the bosses themselves are like super easy so far. But kind of balancing that dungeon crawler RPG aspect with the highly addicting social sim aspect. I love the social sim aspect. I love talking to these girls because not only is it kind of quirky and all that, and they all have their own unique quirks and they're all so interesting, but you actually kind of get to learn more about them personally, and they all kind of have some interesting stories. The more you kind of get to talk to them, you'll find out that they have some interesting personal stories and personal history to talk about. It's just a lot of fun. It's a quirky little RPG. It does have a lot of religious overtones, like I mentioned before, so if you don't kind of like that in a game, you might not like this, because this is very blatantly, like throughout the whole game, religious motifs everywhere. But I don't mind that too much. I think it's super addicting trying to create like new, stronger star children and upgrade them, give them independence, and then you create another star child group, and then you take them into labyrinths and, you know, grind them up to levels. So super addicting. It's just, I think that's what I'm really liking about the game, is it's very addicting. Just the balance between social sim and RPG. It's simplistic, it's easy to kind of approach as an overall RPG, and I'm really enjoying it, so I can't wait to play some more of Conception 2 Children of the Seven Stars. It's a very enjoyable dungeon crawler, social sim, hybrid RPG, so I personally really like it. So that's my take on Conception 2 Children of the Seven Stars. As always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.